Money is meant to do one thing: represent value. It's supposed to make trade easier, stabilize economies, and give people confidence in the future. But what happens when money loses its meaning? Imagine this: a single banknote worth $100 trillion, and yet it can't even buy a loaf of bread. This is the shocking story of Zimbabwe's hyperinflation crisis, where money became nothing more than paper, and a $100 trillion note became the symbol of a nation's financial collapse. At independence in 1980, Zimbabwe was one of Africa's most promising economies. The Zimbabwean dollar was strong, even stronger than the US dollar at one point. Farms were productive, cities were growing, industry was booming. People had faith in their future, and the country seemed poised for prosperity.
But over time, things started to go wrong. Economic pressures began to build. In the early 2000s, controversial land reforms disrupted Zimbabwe's agriculture, the backbone of its economy. Food production plummeted, exports faltered, government revenue shrank. Yet, at the same time, public spending kept rising. The government, in a desperate attempt to fill the gap, began printing more money. At first, inflation was a minor issue. Prices started rising gradually, but soon it became painful, and then it became uncontrollable. By 2007 and 2008, Zimbabwe was in the grip of one of the worst hyperinflation crises in modern history. Prices doubled in days, sometimes hours. Workers rushed to spend their salaries immediately after being paid because by the next morning, prices would have doubled again. Shops changed price tags constantly. ATMs limited withdrawals, but the money withdrawn could barely buy anything. People carried bags filled with banknotes just to buy basic groceries. And then, in a desperate measure, the government printed larger and larger denominations of money. First thousands, then millions, then billions. In 2008, Zimbabwe printed the unimaginable, a $100 trillion note. It became one of the largest currency denominations ever issued in the history of the world. But here's the shocking truth: even $100 trillion couldn't buy a simple meal. Money had become paper without power. At its peak, Zimbabwe's inflation rate reached billions of percent annually. Economists could barely calculate the figures because prices were changing too quickly. Confidence in the currency evaporated. Businesses began rejecting Zimbabwean dollars. People turned to barter or used foreign currencies like the US dollar and the South African rand. In 2009, Zimbabwe abandoned its currency altogether. The country adopted a multi-currency system, relying mostly on the US dollar to stabilize trade. Inflation slowed, shops refilled, basic stability returned. Years later, Zimbabwe attempted to reintroduce its own currency, but the damage was done. Trust, once lost, is hard to rebuild. Today, the $100 trillion note remains a powerful symbol. It's sold as a collector's item online, sometimes worth more as a souvenir than it ever was as real money. The Zimbabwean experience serves as a stark reminder. Money is not just paper or coins. It is a fragile system built on trust. When that trust is broken, currency becomes worthless. Zimbabwe's story is not just about inflation, it is about the power of belief in money. Money works because society believes it works. It holds value because people agree it does. Without that trust, money is meaningless. The Zimbabwe trillion-dollar note tells the world that currency is more than just a medium of exchange. It is a reflection of human ingenuity, persistence, and vision. It is a symbol of confidence. And when the foundations of that confidence weaken, even $100 trillion can become worthless. In the end, Zimbabwe's experience stands as one of the most dramatic financial lessons in modern history. A reminder that money without stability and trust is nothing more than paper.